Have you ever imagined that the number 9 isn't just a number, but a door? A door that doesn't open to heaven, but to a cursed town, where every toll of the bell drags you closer to your end. Tonight, I will tell you the story of Emily, who returned to Hallow's Edge seeking the truth about her mother's death. But instead, she found the 9th bell. And before we begin, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel so you never miss the next horror tale. Chapter 1. The Arrival. The rain hammered against the windshield as the bus rattled down the deserted mountain road. Emily pressed her forehead to the cold glass, watching the trees blur into dark silhouettes. The farther they drove, the less civilization seemed to exist. No street lights, no signs of houses, only endless pines bending in the storm-like shadows, bowing to something unseen. She had never heard of Hallow's Edge until last month, when the letter arrived. No return address. No sender's name, just one short message, written in shaky black ink. Come to Hallow's Edge. Your mother's death was not an accident. Emily had burned the letter twice in her mind, but she could not ignore it. Her mother had died in a house fire when Emily was a child. Everyone said it was an accident, yet the handwriting on the page had been familiar, just like her mother's. The bus jolted violently as it hit a pothole. The driver muttered a curse. Emily tightened her grip on her suitcase. There were only 2 other passengers left. A man in a long coat who never looked up from the floor, and a pale woman in the back seat, whispering to herself over and over words Emily couldn't quite catch. The storm grew heavier. The headlights caught a sign half broken by rust and moss. Welcome to Hallow's Edge. Population unknown. Emily's heart pounded. The bus slowed, screeching against wet asphalt. The driver turned his head, his eyes meeting hers in the mirror. They were unusually cold. You sure you want to get off here, miss? He asked, his voice low. People don't come back from this place. For a moment, Emily almost said no, almost asked him to keep driving, but the letter burned in her pocket. I'll get off here, she whispered. The driver gave her a long, unreadable stare, then pulled the lever. The doors creaked open, releasing a breath of freezing wind mixed with the smell of wet earth and smoke. Emily stepped down, her boots splashing into black puddles. Behind her, the bus hissed like an angry beast. She turned for one last glance. The man in the long coat was staring directly at her now, his face hidden in shadow. The pale woman had stopped whispering. Her lips were frozen in a wide smile. And then the doors slammed shut. The bus roared away, swallowed by the storm, leaving Emily alone on the broken road. Only silence remained, and the faint flicker of a lantern swinging in the distance, deeper within the fog. The lantern flickered again once, twice like a heartbeat on the verge of stopping. Emily stepped off the road and onto a narrow lane chewed by roots and rain. The fog moved with a mind of its own, drawing back just enough to show her where to put her feet, then closing in behind her like a door. The smell of smoke was stronger here, threaded with something sweet and rotten, something that tugged at a memory she didn't want. The lantern was hanging from a crooked iron hook on a wooden post. Beneath it, nailed at eye level, a warped plank carried a set of rules burned into the wood with a hot iron. 1. No whistling after dark. 2. If you hear knocking, Count to 9 before you answer. 3. Return the lantern to the post before dawn. 4. Do not look at the bell. She stared at the last one. Do not look at the bell. There was no bell in sight. The fog breathed and shuffled around her boots. "Hello?" Emily called, voice half swallowed by the wet air. "Is anyone there?" Something answered. Not a voice, more like a shuffle of footsteps on gravel. Too slow to be human, too close to be safe. Emily lifted the lantern from its hook. The flame inside did not quiver from the storm. It burned steady, as though the glass swallowed the wind. The lane opened onto what might once have been a square. A sagging general store slouched to the left with a faded sign that read Merit and Sons. Every window was bandaged with boards, and each board had a small, neat hole drilled through its center, as if for watching. Across the square was a church without a steeple, its roof spine bowed, a black shape among black trees. To the right, a shingle creaked above a narrow building. The resting stag. The painted stag had no eyes. A bell tolled. It did not come from the church. It did not come from anywhere Emily could point to. It was a sound that arrived inside her bones, low and cold, pressing her joints together until they hurt. Do not look at the bell. Her eyes tried to find it anyway. The fog hid whatever it wanted. Another toll. Closer this time. She flinched and bolted for the inn. The resting stag's door groaned as she pushed it, spilling a wedge of lamplight onto the muddy step. A narrow vestibule led to a small front room with a counter, a ledger, and a glass jar full of coins tarnished to green. The air was warmer inside, thick with wood smoke and something medicinal. A lone lamp made a pool of yellow on the counter. From the back room, a voice. Close the door, dear. We don't keep that open once the bell wakes. Emily shut it quickly. The woman who emerged could have been 60 or 40. It was impossible to tell which the town had taken from her. Gray hair pulled into a knot, sleeves rolled to sinewed forearms, apron neat but scorched at the hem. She stopped when she saw Emily, and a small tremor passed over her mouth. "You have your mother's eyes," the woman said softly. The floor lurched under Emily's feet. "You knew her. We don't say names after dark," the woman said, quick now, as if she'd overstepped a line only she could see. "But I knew her." She slid the ledger forward. "Write to Emily in the book and nothing else. We'll find you a room." Emily swallowed. "I got a letter. It said her death wasn't an accident. Let us say all kinds of things." The woman's fingers fluttered, then stilled. "I'm Agnes. I keep the stag." She turned the ledger around so Emily could read the last entries. The most recent names were not written so much as pressed into the paper by a heavy, shaking hand. Gina. Calder crossed out, smudged, nitrogen monoxide vacancy written twice, and beneath it, small and neat, Emily. The pen slid from Emily's grip. "I didn't write that." "We'll pretend you did." Agnes took the pen back. "Room 3. Second floor. There are house rules." She reached under the counter and produced a thin card, the edges browned by heat. "House rules of the resting stag. After midnight, leave the window curtains closed. If you hear the bell, Do not count along. If something knocks from inside, slide a coin back under the door and wait. Do not say the names of the lost. Leave the lantern on the hallway hook before sleep. Agnes pushed the jar forward. Take 2 coins, silver, if you can find any. Emily fished. The coins were not silver. They were too light, as if made for children or for the dead. She pocketed 2 and accepted the key Agnes placed on the counter. A heavy iron thing with a loop worn smooth. You shouldn't have come back, Agnes said, very low. I've never been here. Agnes looked at her the way you look at a flame about to touch lace. Everyone who leaves Hallow's Edge keeps a footprint behind. Sometimes that's enough for the town to find you. Sometimes it's the bell. She caught herself again. Up you go. And whatever you hear, don't open your door. Unless the lantern outside burns blue. The lanterns burn blue. They do when something that isn't me is in the hall. The stairs protested every step. The hallway was long and narrow, paneled in old wood that had learned too many secrets and shrunk back from them. Hooks were set every 10 feet, and on each hook hung a brass lantern. All of them were dark. Emily set her lantern on the nearest hook. The flame inside dimmed as if reluctant, then steadied. Room 3's door had 9 little notches carved above the knob. She fitted the key and turned. The room smelled like smoke and lavender. A small bed, a small table, a small wardrobe with a mirror that slouched in its frame. Someone had left a teacup on the windowsill, empty and bright with a ring of old sugar. The curtains were thick and gray, the kind of fabric that made the night heavier. She set her suitcase on the bed. Her hands were shaking. She told herself it was only the bus, the storm, the bell. She told herself the smell of smoke was the fireplace downstairs. Nothing else, nothing older. The letter crinkled in her pocket. She drew it out, unfolded it. The words were the same come to Hallow's Edge. Your mother's death was not an accident, but the paper itself felt different now. Softer, as if handled by more than her. When she held it near the lamp, a faint watermark appeared, a circle with spokes, like a wheel or a sun with 9 rays. At the bottom corner, too faint to see before, a second mark swelled up in the light. ASH Lane 7. Her house, Emily whispered, though she had no reason to know it. As if answering, the bell tolled again. The sound peeled through her room and laid cold fingers across the back of her neck. She closed the curtains. The mirror in the wardrobe watched her. She avoided it without trying to, but her gaze kept snagging. The glass was old, seeded with tiny black stars. Her reflection looked like someone seeing herself underwater. Stop it, she told herself. You're tired. The floorboards ticked as the building shifted. Then the ticking became scratching, very soft, from under the bed. Emily went perfectly still. The scratching moved to the foot of the bed and then horribly to the head of it, just below the pillow, as if something had climbed inside the mattress and was feeling its way toward the shape of a human head. She did not breathe. The sound stopped. A full 5 seconds passed. Then the faintest voice, no bigger than a breath. Count to 9. Her skin turned to ice. Ness's rules flashed through her skull. If something knocks from inside, slide a coin back under the door and wait. This wasn't knocking. But the number 9 was everywhere in this town, on the door, in the rules, in the spokes of the watermark. Her mother's handwriting had always paused on the 9th stroke of an M, lifting, as if wary of completing the letter. "Count to 9, the voice whispered again, from inside the mattress, from a gap in the walls, from the place behind her teeth she couldn't tell. Emily grabbed one of the coins, dropped to the floor, and peered under the bed. Nothing. Only a skin of darkness and the shape of the floorboards running away like ribs. She slid the coin onto the floorboards and pushed it toward the door with her fingertips. It scraped softly, a small, real sound in all the wrong ones. She reached the door and slipped the coin beneath it. It chimed on the hall side and went still. "Wait," the card had said. She waited. The hall lantern, dim through the gap under the door, breathed twice and went out. The bell tolled a third time, nearer than it had any right to be. Emily's phone vibrated in her jacket pocket. She had forgotten it was there. The screen was black. No caller ID. The signal bars were gone, replaced with a small, spinning circle. She answered anyway. "Hello." Static. Then a hiss. Then M. She forgot how to swallow. "Mom." Silence, except for the kind that listens back. Then, "Don't open the door." "Don't," the voice broke, like something had put its thumb on the tape of an old cassette. "The bell will forget its name if you make it count with you. Do you understand?" "I don't. Where are you?" "Room 3. The voice said very plainly. "I am always in room 3 when you were small. The night of the fire, I put you under the bed and told you to count. You never did. You went to the window." The window Dawn looked static, scraped her ear. She pulled the phone away, looked at the screen. The timer said the call had lasted 9 seconds. 3 knocks came at the door. Slow. Even. They were not from the hall. They were from the wardrobe. Emily turned her head by inches. The wardrobe door was closed, but the handle had rotated a fraction, as if pinched by a child's damp fingers. She stepped backward until the bed touched the backs of her knees. "Count to 9, said the whisper again, from everywhere. She fished the second coin from her pocket, hands slippery, and slid it across the floorboards to the wardrobe. It stopped beneath the crack. For a brief long one, nothing happened. Then the coin slid back to her. It had been scored twice across its face, as though something with long teeth had closed gently around it and let go. The lantern outside in the hall flared blue, a bloom of cold light that painted the bottom of the door with a blade of color. Agnes had said, "Only open if the lantern burns blue when it isn't me." "Who are you?" Emily whispered, not sure whom she meant. The wardrobe handle turned another notch. From the hall, something walked past her door, slow and wet-footed, dragging a length of chain that tapped the beadboard in regular, patient strokes. 9 taps. Then it stopped. A moment later, the chain slid away again, as if whatever held it had sunk into the floor. The room's temperature fell like a stone. Her breath feathered in the air. A smear of condensation bloomed on the window pane behind the curtains. Letters began to write themselves in it, backward, as if a finger were tracing them from the outside. "Do not trust the boss." Her mouth went dry. She hadn't told anyone about the bus, the man in the long coat, the smiling woman. She crossed the room and pressed her hand to the curtain, feeling the damp through the fabric. On the street below, she heard nothing, saw nothing, but she watched the exact sensation of being the only lit room in a dead town. Another line appeared beneath the first, the letters tall and skeletal. He got off with, "You." Emily's legs weakened. She pictured the man in the long coat, face buried in shadow, head lifting as the bus doors sealed. She pictured the way the aisle had seemed to fold when he stood. The wardrobe knocked again 3 times. Polite. As a neighbor, the bell tolled a 4th time, then a 5th, ignoring minutes in mercy. The phone vibrated in her hand once more. A text, unsent by any number, bloomed on the screen. Ash Lane 7 before the 9th. Her pulse hammered. Nye ran through the town like a crack through glass. The lantern in the hall went from blue to white to the strangest color she had ever seen a color. Her eyes rejected, but her bones recognized the way they recognized fall and fever. The wardrobe latch clicked. "Don't," Emily said, to the room, to the wardrobe, to the child she had been, and the mother she had lost. She snatched the key from the inside of the door, locked it, then slid the iron bolt home in edition someone had made recently, the metal bright against old wood. She backed away until she hit the bed again. The wardrobe door eased open anyway. The wood sighed, accepting the will of something stronger. Inside was not a closet. Inside was a narrow staircase descending into dark. A draft came up from below, warm and sweet, carrying the smell of smoldering wood and lilies left too long in a hospital vase. Somewhere under the floorboards, just at the edge of hearing, something began to hum the note of the bell without ringing it, as if practicing the shape of the sound on a mouth with no tongue. Emily gripped the bedpost so hard her knuckles hurt. The phone in her hand vibrated one last time. She lifted it. A photo had arrived. No sender, just an image built from darkness and flash. A hallway she didn't recognize, hung with 9 lanterns. Standing beneath the 9th, back to the camera, head tilted as if listening, was a woman who could only be her mother. The wardrobe stairs breathed. One breath in, one breath out. Somewhere, far away and also in her ear, the bell drew itself up to strike again. The breath rising from the wardrobe stairs carried with it the weight of years, of something waiting too long in the dark. Emily's throat tightened. Every instinct screamed to slam the door shut, to drag the dresser across it, to pretend none of this had ever opened. But the text message still burned in her mind. Ash Lane 7 before the 9th. The bell was tolling faster now. Not the calm strike of a church clock, but frantic, irregular, like a heartbeat collapsing under its own panic. She knew without knowing how that when it struck the 9th time, something would arrive. The stairs beyond the wardrobe were impossibly narrow, dug into black timber that gleamed as though damp with oil. The lanterns on the hole outside her door had gone out again. But inside this passage, a faint glow pulsed from below, as if a fire smoldered deep underground. Her phone screen flickered. Signal still dead. Battery already at 60%, though she hadn't used it in hours. And across the glass, her reflection rippled not, copying her movements, but delayed, like it was someone else pretending to be her. She stuffed the phone in her pocket and forced herself to descend. Each step, wind under her boots, and with each one the air grew heavier. The smell of lilies rotting in stagnant water, smoke still clinging to burnt walls, and beneath that, the faintest metallic temps of blood. Halfway down, the whisper returned. "Count to 9. It came not from one voice, but dozens, layered, like children repeating a lesson they no longer understood. Emily clamped her hands over her ears. "Stop!" The whispers laughed. The stairs ended in a low cellar chamber. The ceiling dripped. Wooden beams leaned like broken ribs, and along the walls, shelves sagged under the weight of glass jars. Each jar held something suspended in brine. Curled hands, pale eyes, a shriveled tongue pressed against the glass. Her stomach lurched. She backed away, bumping into a wooden post. Nailed into the post was a scrap of fabric, scorched at the edges. She touched it with trembling fingers. It was a piece of her mother's dress. She remembered it, blue with faded flowers. Pinned beneath the cloth was another note, newer than the dress scrap, the ink wet enough to smudge under her touch. "Do not let him follow you." The cellar groaned, shifting as though something massive had rolled beneath it. Jars rattled on the shelves. One cracked, spilling cloudy brine across the floor. Inside the broken glass, the preserved eye rolled free, coming to rest at her boot tip. It stared at her. No behind her. Emily spun. At the far end of the cellar, in the glow of the unseen fire, stood the man from the bus. The long coat dripped as though soaked in the storm, though no rain touched this place. His hat brim shadowed his face, but his eyes burned faintly white, like ash left after paper burns. He did not move. He only lifted one hand, long-fingered and skeletal, and pointed at her. The bell struck. Once, twice, 3 times. The jars shook harder, shattering in cascades, spilling their contents across the stone floor. Dozens of pale hands, eyes, and teeth scattered, twitching as though alive. 4, 5. The man's head tilted, slow as a marionette. 6, 7. The cellar door behind him burst open on its own, revealing a corridor lit by fire. At the end of it, a shape leaned on the wall. A woman's shape. Her hair scorched, her arms folded tight as if in pain. But her face, Emily's heart froze. It was her mother. 8. The whisper screamed as one. "Count to 9. The man in the coat took a single step forward, boots hissing in the brine. The firelight surged, spilling over his shadow, which stretched toward Emily like claws. 9. The bell's 9th strike cracked. Here, the cellar buckled, shelves collapsing, fire rushing up the corridor. Her mother's figure dissolved into smoke. The man's shadow leapt across the floor, and the lantern in Emily's pocket blazed white-hot, burning against her leg. She yanked it free, holding it high. The flame inside exploded into a blinding circle, throwing back the shadow, peeling it away like flesh. The man shrieked without sound, his body folding inward, sucked into the blackness of his own coat until nothing remained but a wet, smoking hat on the floor. The fire guttered out. The cellar fell silent. Emily collapsed against the wall, chest heaving. On the ground where the man had stood, the floorboards charred into words, each letter branded deep. A. Lane. May. Night. Chapter 2. Ash Lane. The storm had thinned into a cold drizzle by the time Emily stumbled out of the resting stag. The streets of Hollow's Edge stretched in every direction, but her path was already carved for her. Ash Lane 7. The words were carved into her bones now, burned into her mind by fire and bell. She carried the lantern with her. Its glow did not fade with the wind, but instead bent the fog aside like a shepherd parting sheep. The silence in town was unbearable. No birds, no animals, not even the hum of insects. The only sound was her own footsteps splashing against the crooked cobblestones. The houses leaned over the street like watchers, windows blind with boards or glass clouded from within. Once or twice, she thought she saw figures shift behind curtains, but when she blinked, there was only emptiness. At the end of the crooked lane, she found it. Ash Lane 7. The house stood like a wound in the earth, its timbers blackened from fire long past. The roof sagged inward, but the walls against all reason still stood. Charred boards reached into the sky like ribs around a burned heart. Her stomach twisted, memories clawed up from the dark. The night she had woken as a child to her mother's screams, the heat pressing in, the choking smoke. She remembered running for the window, not counting like her mother told her to, and then nothing but cold air and silence. The lantern flickered in her hand. She stepped onto the porch. The boards groaned but held her weight. The door was warped black. The handle melted into a lump of metal. She reached for it anyway. The door gave way with a sigh, opening into darkness that smelled of wet ash and mold. Inside, the air was thicker, heavy with the residue of something that should have died but hadn't. The walls were scarred black, the wallpaper peeled in strips, curling like dead skin. Her boots crunched on broken glass, remnants of a window long shattered. Her lantern cast long shadows across the floor. In the center of the room, drawn into the wood itself, was a massive circle. 9 spokes radiated from its heart, each one ending in a crude mark like a handprint pressed into the grain. Emily froze. She knew this circle. She had seen it before, though she couldn't say where. Maybe in her dreams, maybe burned into her memory from that night. A creak echoed above her floorboards, shifting under unseen weight. She snapped her head up. The second floor loomed, railing broken, a staircase hanging crookedly like a broken jaw, and then she heard it. A child's giggle, high, soft, echoing through the burned rafters. Her blood ran cold. She raised the lantern higher. Its glow revealed photographs scattered across the floor around the circle, burned at the edges, faces blackened, but some features still visible. One of them was her mother. Emily dropped to her knees, brushing ash from the image. Her mother stood in front of this very house, holding Emily as a baby in her arms. Behind them, the front door had the same warped scar she had just touched. Another photo. Her mother inside the church, standing before the altar, eyes hollow as if she hadn't slept in days. Another. Her mother with a group of townsfolk, faces obscured by masks carved from wood, each mask painted with a single number, 1 through 9. Her breath quickened. Footsteps creaked on the stairs above her. Slow, heavy, coming down. She shoved the photos into her pocket, grabbed the lantern, and spun toward the doorway. But the door she had come through was gone. The wall was whole, unbroken, as if no entrance had ever existed. The footsteps were closer now. Something descended the crooked staircase, dragging a hand along the splintered railing. The sound was sharp, deliberate, like claws scratching messages into the wood. Her lantern flared, fighting to show the figure coming into view. It was not the man from the bus. It was a child, barefoot, skin gray with soot, eyes black pits without whites. Its hair hung in wet strands across its face. In its hand, it carried a charred toy horse, one wheel missing, the other dragging against the steps with a hollow clack. The child stopped halfway down, tilted its head, and smiled wide enough to tear the skin at the corners of its mouth. "Count with me," it whispered, and the bell began again. 1, 1. The first toll rattled the burned beams overhead. Dust sifted down like gray snow. The child on the stairs gripped its charred toy horse tighter, dragging it against the wood so that every step groaned like a scream. Emily's heart hammered, each beat chasing the bell. She stumbled back toward the circle carved into the floor. The 9 spokes seemed to twitch in the lantern glow, shadows bending as though alive. 2. The bell struck again, louder, closer. Not from outside this time, but inside the house. The child giggled. "You're late. Mama said you'd come back before the 9th. Emily's throat closed. "Who are you?" The child tilted its head, eyes glistening black like oil. "You know. You left me here." 3. The lantern flickered, its flame straining as if something heavy leaned against it. The circle on the floor glowed faintly, the handprints swelling darker, fresh as if pressed just now into blood instead of wood. The child stepped lower, one foot dragging, leaving a soot-black footprint on each stair. "I was in the fire. You went to the window. You didn't count." Emily staggered back, the photographs crumpled in her pocket like thorns. "That's not true. I don't remember." For the bell shuddered through the walls. The burned wallpaper peeled back another layer, curling off in strips. Something writhed beneath its veins, dark and pulsing, running across the plaster like the skin of a living thing. The child grinned wider, its mouth stretched until the skin at the corners tore ash dribbling from the wounds. "Count with me, Emily." Her name and its voice was a violation, like nails under her skin. 5. The circle flared, a wind rose inside the house, swirling ash into shapes. For an instant, Emily saw faces in the storm, men and women screaming with their mouths full of soot, their eyes hollow, their hands outstretched as though reaching for her. The child reached the last stair. It stood barely 3 feet tall, but the shadow it cast stretched across the room, enormous, branching, splitting into 9 crooked limbs. 6. The lantern flared against the pressure, throwing a spear of white light across the child. For a heartbeat, Emily saw its true form, bones charred black, flesh hanging like melted wax, teeth glimmering wet inside the soot. She staggered toward the circle. Something told her instinct, memory, maybe her mother's voice, that the circle was not just a mark. It was meant to hold something back, the child hissed when her boots touched its edge. 7. The bell cracked louder now, almost shattering her skull. From upstairs, Flames roared to life in the black rafters, licking down the walls. But they did not consume. They clung, burning without spreading, painting the house in fire that did not belong to this world. Emily raised the lantern higher. "Stay back." The child pressed its foot against the circle. Smoke hissed where its skin touched. It shrieked not like a child, but like something ancient, scraped raw by centuries of hunger. The entire house shuddered. A pressure built in the air, crushing Emily's chest. She dropped to one knee, gasping, the lantern rattling in her hand. The circle pulsed like a heart beneath her, each spoke throbbing red. The child screamed louder, covering its ears, black tears spilling down its cheeks. "Don't let it come." The ninth, "Don't let it finish." Emily froze. The childish thing was afraid of the final toll. 9. The bell shattered through the air, deafening, breaking glass, splitting wood. The circle erupted in light, the floor split wide, and a column of black fire roared upward, carrying with it a shape tall, thin, faceless, its body wrapped in shadows that writhed like living chains. The child fell to its knees, howling. "You shouldn't have come. You shouldn't have come back." Emily's lantern burned hotter than ever, blazing blue-white, forcing the figure back into the fissure. But the cracks in the floor spread, racing toward the walls, toward her feet. The house was collapsing not from time, not from fire, but from something tearing its way out. She turned and ran, shoving through what had once been the door now, split open again by the quake. The night air outside hit her like ice. The drizzle had stopped. The town square stretched before her, silent and watching. Behind her, Ash Lane 7 groaned, sagging into itself, the glow of the circle still burning inside. The bell tolled one last time, then fell silent. Emily clutched the lantern, trembling, and from somewhere deep in the town, carried by the fog, came her mother's voice. "Before the 9th, Emily. Always before the 9th." The streets of Hallow's Edge were darker now, though no storm clouds lingered above. The moon should have lit the lanes, but instead the fog seemed to drink its light, leaving only the lantern in Emily's hand to carve a narrow path through the night. Her boots echoed across the cobblestones. Each step felt what? Every boarded window and crooked roof seemed to lean closer, as if the entire town were bending toward her. She forced herself to breathe, to move. Her mother's voice still clung to her ears before the 9th. "Emily, always before the 9th. Before the 9th, Emily. Always before the 9th." The words haunted her more than the fire, more than the child on the stairs. She turned corners blindly until the square appeared again, and there it was. The church. It stood taller than the rest of the buildings, though its steeple was gone, ripped away long ago. The bell tower was empty, but the tolling had never come from above. Its black roof hunched like folded wings, and its windows were panes of darkness, unbroken, yet glimmering faintly as if someone stood just behind the glass with a candle. Emily's lantern flared when she faced it. Her gut told her this was where she needed to go. The photos she had found showed her mother standing inside, hollow-eyed, beneath that altar. The doors opened with a groan when she touched them, Though she hadn't pushed, the church air was heavy stolid, mildew, and something sharper. Copper-old blood. Pews leaned crookedly in rows, gnawed by rot. The floor was coated in a fine layer of ash. At the far end rose the altar, a slab of black stone, veined with cracks, chained at each corner as though to keep it in place, and on the wall above it, painted in tar or something darker, was a circle of 9 symbols, each symbol jagged, primitive, pulsing faintly like scars that had never healed. The 9th symbol was smeared, blurred as if erased. Emily's steps whispered against the ash as she moved down the aisle. The lantern's light stretched across the pews, and for a moment she swore she saw figures kneeling, their shadow bodies' heads bowed, hands clasped. But when she blinked, the pews were empty again. Emily. Her heart thudded. She reached the altar. Laid across it, half-burned but still legible, was another book. Its cover was leather, blackened at the edges, branded with the 9-spoked wheel she had seen beneath her mother's letter. She opened it with shaking fingers. The pages were filled with names. Dozens, maybe hundreds, each written carefully, then crossed out with red ink. Some of the ink had bled through, staining the next page. At the very end of the list, written fresh, was her own name, Emily. Her stomach dropped. A sound echoed in the church. S-H-H-H-K. Shick. Shick. She froze. It was the sound of something being dragged across stone. Chains? The aisle behind her was empty, but the sound was closer now, scraping between pews, circling. Emily clutched the lantern. Its flame guttered, blue for a breath, then white, then dim again, and then a voice, deep and raw, filled the church from every wall. You cannot leave. Her blood iced. The pews shifted. Shadows rose from them, one by one, headless figures cloaked in ash, dragging their chains along the ground as they stood. 9 of them, each turned slowly toward her, their movements synchronized, deliberate, the way puppets moved under one hand. The chains scraped the floor again, in rhythm. Sha, 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 sha. Emily stumbled back against the altar, the book slipping from her grasp. The 9th symbol on the wall throbbed brighter. As if awakened, the shadows stepped closer, forming a half-circle around her. The chains rose like serpents, ready to strike. Her lantern flared again, blazing white. For a heartbeat, the shadows recoiled. But instead of vanishing, they opened their mouths gaping, black holes, and began to scream. The scream wasn't sound. It was pressure. Her ears rang. Her bones rattled. The air itself quivered as though it wanted to burst. Emily fell to her knees, clutching her head. The lantern shook in her grip. Through the scream, one word pierced her mind. Her mother's voice again, fragile but fierce. Sanctuary. Break the altar. Emily's eyes snapped open. The black stone altar pulsed beneath her hand. Warm, alive. The chains around it rattled, straining against bolts driven into the floor. The 9 shadows closed in, their screams rising to a single note, the same note as the bell. Emily raised the lantern high and brought it down on the altar. The stone cracked with a thunderous snap. Light white, violent, searing erupted through the church, blasting the shadows apart into clouds of ash. The 9 symbols on the wall flared, then bled black, dripping down like tar. The bell tolled once, echoing hollow through the ruins. Then silence. When the light faded, Emily was on her hands and knees before the broken altar. The book was gone, but etched into the stone where it had split was a message, burned deep as if written by fire itself. The 9th is not a number. It is a door. The silence inside the church was suffocating, deeper than the grave, as if even the fog outside had been hushed by the light that had split the altar. Emily's lantern dimmed to a frail ember, barely clinging to its wick. She stared at the words etched into the stone, her breath ragged. The 9th is not a number. I is a door. Her hands trembled as she traced the letters. The grooves were still warm, faintly pulsing, like veins under skin. A sound stirred beneath the broken altar. Slow, wet, breathing. Emily scrambled back, her boots slipping on the ash-coated floor. The chains that once bound the stone rattled, one after another, until each link snapped free and slithered to the ground like dead serpents. The crack in the altar widened, and from the rift, a faint glow spilled out, not fire, not light, but something darker. A shimmer like black water reflecting stars that weren't hers. She felt the pull instantly. Not on her body, on her mind. Whispers seeped through the crack, overlapping, desperate. Hundreds of voices calling at once. Some familiar, some strange, all pressing into her skull. Emily, open. Count with us. 9, 9. She clutched her head, biting down on a scream. Stoppy. The lantern flared suddenly, throwing back the shadows. Its flame burned blue now, steady and sharp, cutting through the fog of voices. For a moment, Emily could see clearly. The crack was not just a crack. It was a door frame, a narrow arch carved into the stone beneath the altar. Its edges lined with the same 9 symbols she had seen scorched into the walls. 8 of the symbols burned faintly. The 9th was missing. She remembered the blurred mark above the altar, the one erased. And then she remembered her mother's voice again, echoing from the static of the phone call. The bell will forget its name if you make it count with you. Do you understand? Emily's pulse thundered. She didn't understand, not fully, but she knew one thing. Whatever waited beyond that crack was not meant to be freed. The floor shuddered beneath her knees. Ash rained from the rafters. She turned toward the door of a church only, to see it shut, sealed. Tight, the fog pressed against the windows, thick and unyielding. When she turned back, the crack in the altar had widened further. glowing like an open wound. From inside, something pressed against the threshold. A hand, pale, long-fingered, its nails black as coal. The stone groaned beneath its weight. Emily staggered to her feet, raising the lantern. The flame sputtered, struggling. The hand curled against the stone. Another hand followed. Then the hint of a face, featureless, smooth as wet clay, pushing against the shimmer like something desperate to be born. The whispers rose again. "Let us through. Count to 9. Open the door." Emily's panic sharpened into defiance. "No!" She swung the lantern forward. Its flame burst in a surge of light, striking the hands. The thing shrieked not aloud, but inside her skull, it recoiled, sinking back into the crack, leaving behind only black smoke. The glow dimmed, but the door did not close. Instead, the symbols around the frame shifted, one by one. They lit, red hot, until only the erased 9th remained empty. Beneath it, fresh words carved themselves into the stone, jagged and violent. "Find the 9th. Bring it back." The church fell quiet. The lantern's flames steadied again, pale but alive. Emily backed away from the altar, chest heaving, sweat cold on her skin. She knew what this meant. The town wanted her to finish what her mother had refused, to complete the circle, to find the missing 9th. And if she didn't, if the bell struck its count without her stopping it, the door would open on its own. From the back of the church, a floorboard creaked. Emily spun, lantern raised. In the shadowed pews, a figure stood watching her. Not a child, not the man from the bus. A woman, her mother. But this time, she wasn't a vision. She wasn't smoke or static. She was standing there solid, breathing, eyes full of fire, and she was shaking her head. "Emily," her mother whispered, her voice trembling but clear. "Don't finish what they started." Chapter 3. The 9th. Emily's breath caught in her throat. Her mother stood only a few paces away, half hidden by the pews, her dress scorched at the edges, her skin pale but whole. Her eyes burned not with fire, but with urgency. "Mom," Emily whispered. The word felt foreign, too heavy for her mouth. Her mother stepped closer, her bare feet silent on the ash. She shook her head again, sharper this time. "You shouldn't be here, Emily." Tears stung Emily's eyes, but confusion drowned them out. You're alive. I saw you in the fire. I watched the house burn." Her mother's face twisted with sorrow. "You saw what the town wanted you to see. What it always shows the children it can't keep." She reached out, her hand trembling. "I tried to save you from it. I failed." The lantern in Emily's grip hissed, its flame shrinking, wary. The glow painted her mother's features with long, uneven shadows. Emily swallowed hard. "What is this place? What does the bell want? What does the 9th mean?" Her mother flinched at the word 9th, as though it were a blade drawn too quickly. "Don't speak it here," she said, her voice hushed, sharp. "Every time it's named, the door listens. The town listens. Then tell me," Emily cried, louder than she meant to. The church walls groaned in answer, the fog thickening against the windows like a tide. Her mother darted forward, pressing her hand over Emily's mouth. Her skin was warm, achingly real. "Quiet," she breathed. "You don't understand. The 9th isn't a number. It's the key that binds the others. 1 through 8 are chains, but the 9th unlocks them all." Emily's heart slammed. "A door?" she whispered against her mother's hand. Her mother's eyes shimmered. "A door to what should never be opened." For a moment, silence. The bell was still. The church seemed to hold its breath. Then a sound drifted from the altar, from the crack Emily had forced open, a knocking. Soft, deliberate, like knuckles tapping on wood. 1, 2, 3. Her mother's face drained of color. She seized Emily's arm with sudden strength. "Don't answer it. Don't ever answer. That's how it begins." The knocking stopped at 3. From the fissure, a laugh spilled out high and childish, echoing like the soot-covered child she'd seen on the stairs of Ash Lane 7. Emily trembled. "It wants me." Her mother's grip tightened. "It wants all of us. The town feeds on those who count. Once you give the 9th its name, you're part of the circle. Forever." The lantern guttered blue, then flared white. For an instant, Emily saw something behind her mother, a tall figure in the pews, faceless, cloaked in ash, its head bowed like it prayed. She blinked, and it was gone. Her mother released her, her voice breaking. "I can't hold them back much longer. You have to leave Hallow's Edge before the 9th toll." Emily staggered, torn between fear and fury. "No, I came here because of your letter. You wanted me to find the truth." "You?" Her mother's eyes widened, horror dawning. "Letter, yes. It was in your handwriting. It said your death wasn't an accident." Her mother's face crumpled. "Emily, I never sent you a letter." The bell tolled once. The altar shook. The symbols around the crack pulsed red, one after another. Her mother's hands flew to her head, her body racked with sudden pain. "They found you. They pulled you back here." Emily reached for her, panicked. "Mom!" Her mother's form flickered like a candle in Winsalede one moment, translucent the next. "I tried to burn the circle. I tried to erase the 9th. But the town doesn't let go, Emily. Not once you've heard the bell." The second toll followed. Louder, closer. Her mother's voice splintered into a sob. "You must break the chain before it reaches 9. Do you hear me? Before 9. The third toll shook the walls. Her mother's eyes locked onto hers, fierce, blazing. "Find the 9th, but don't bring it back. Destroy it." The lantern blazed white-hot in Emily's hand, nearly searing her skin. She lifted it instinctively, and when the light dimmed, her mother was gone. Only ash swirled in the air where she had stood. The fourth toll came, rolling like thunder. Emily turned toward the altar, the words carved into its cracked stone burning in her mind. The 9th is not a number. IT is a door, she knew now. The door wasn't fully open yet, but it would be, unless she found the ninth first. The fourth toll still echoed. When Emily pushed through the church doors, they opened easily this time, as though the building itself wanted her gone. Fog rushed in like a tide, swallowing the steps, the square, the crooked roofs of Hallow's edge. The air outside was thicker, colder. The lantern strained to cut a narrow cone through the gray. Every street seemed different now. Houses had shifted. Signs were wrong. The town itself was changing, twisting while she was inside the church. Emily gripped the lantern tighter and forced her voice steady. Where do I find it? Where's the ninth? The fog answered, not with words, but with a sound, a slow knock. Knock, knock. It came from everywhere and nowhere, rolling through the streets, bouncing off walls, sinking into her bones. The bell did not toll with it. She turned left. The lantern revealed Ash Lane again. The burned house loomed at the far end, though she was sure she had walked away from it. Its windows were eyes, hollow and waiting. She turned right instead. Now the lane spilled into a market square she hadn't seen before. Stalls sagged under rot, meat hooks dangled rusted and empty, and a fountain crouched at the center, dry but stained black, as if it once gushed tar instead of water. Painted across the fountainess rim in jagged strokes was the wheel she had seen everywhere. 9 spokes. But again, one was erased. The 9th. Emily stepped closer. The lantern's flame quivered, pulling toward the fountain as if drawn by a hidden wind. On its edge sat an object small, out of place, a wooden mask, carved crudely into the shape of a face with hollow eyes. The number 7 was scorched into its forehead. She bent, hesitating, then picked it up. The wood was warm, almost pulsing like skin. The moment she touched it, whispers hissed in her ear. 7 is broken. The chain is weak. Bring us the 9th. Complete the circle. Emily hurled the mask to the cobblestones. It split down the middle with a sharp crack. The fog recoiled, and for an instant she saw the square as it once was, bustling with townsfolk, children laughing, vendors calling. Then their faces split open in silent screams, chains snapping tight around their throats. The vision vanished. The square was empty again. Emily's knees trembled. She staggered back, clutching the lantern. No, I won't finish it. I won't bring it back. But the fountain's basin began to glow anyway, faint red lines forming across the stone. A map. She crouched, forcing herself to look. The map showed the town, its crooked lanes branching like veins. At the center, where the fountain stood, all the spokes converged. 8 symbols burned along the lines, glowing like embers. Each spoke ended at a building. The inn, the burned house, the church, the square, and others she hadn't yet seen. Only the 9th spoke was dark, pointing into the woods beyond the town's edge. The fog thickened in that direction, blacker than ink, pulsing like breath. The 5th toll rang, shattering the silence. Emily stumbled, covering her ears. The fountain cracked, waterless but roaring with echoes. When she looked back down, the glowing map was gone. Only one phrase was carved into the stone, fresh as blood. Go to the woods. Emily lifted the lantern and froze. Across the square, standing in the mist, were the 9 shadowed figures she had seen in the church, chains dragging, heads bowed, but this time, one of them had lifted its face, no mouth, no eyes, only skin stretched smooth, and it was pointing at her. The 5th toll still rattled in Emily's chest as the shadow raised its faceless head. Chains slithered across the cobblestones, 9 lengths of iron dragging in unison. Emily's breath hitched. The figures were spreading out, blocking every street leading from the square. The only gap lay behind her toward the woods, exactly where the fountain's map had pointed. The lantern trembled in her hand, its flame flickering between white and blue. She ran. Her boots pounded across the stones, splashing through black puddles. The shadows moved after her without haste, but each step they took seemed to erase distance. The chains scraped faster, louder, rattling in her ears. The fog thickened, walls of gray parting only at the lantern's command. Houses leaned closer, their boarded windows gaping open, as though the town itself bent forward to watch her flee. She crossed the last row of crooked cottages. Ahead, the cobblestones ended at a line of trees. The forest loomed, skeletal and endless. The fog clung low, curling around roots and trunks like coiled serpents. Every tree leaned inward, their branches knotted together to form a canopy that let no moonlight through. She stumbled into the woods, breath ragged. Behind her, the chains stopped. The silence was worse. The lantern's glow strained here. Its light did not chase the fog, it only held it at bay, trembling in a small circle around her. Beyond that, the trees stretched for... Emily slowed, heart hammering. The 6th toll rang. The sound tore through the forest like thunder, shaking bark from the trunks. The trees groaned as if alive, branches twisting toward the sound. Emily dropped to her knees, covering her ears, but the bell wasn't just in the air, it was inside her, rattling her teeth, pressing behind her eyes. When it finally faded, she opened her eyes to find carvings gouged into the bark of the trees around her. 9 symbols. Again, the 9th was erased. Emily forced herself forward, clutching the lantern. Roots clawed at her boots, mud sucking her steps deeper. The fog curled tighter, whispering through the branches like voices carried on wind. Count with us. Count with us. She stumbled onto a narrow path lined with stones. At its end stood a cabin, leaning, its roof sunken, its door half open. A lantern hung on the porch, dark. The lantern in Emily's hand guttered once, then flared, pulling her toward it. The 7th toll struck. The sound rolled through the ground, splitting roots, shaking the cabin. The door banged open with the force of it, revealing only blackness inside. Emily hesitated, terror clawing at her throat, but the lantern's flame bent toward the cabin as though drawn by a tide. She stepped onto the porch. The boards sagged, but held. Her fingers brushed the lantern hook and the cold wood of the doorframe trembled under her hand, warm like skin. A whisper drifted out of the cabin, not the voices of the shadows, not the child's giggle. Her mother's voice, "Emily, hurry, before 9. The cabin exhaled a breath of cold air as Emily stepped inside. Her lantern's light crawled across warped floorboards and rotting walls, revealing a single room stripped of comfort. No furniture, no hearth, only emptiness, as though the house had been built for something other than living. And yet, the air was heavy with presence. The 7th toll still hummed in her bones when she noticed the markings. Every wall was carved with symbols, dozens of them etched deep into the wood. The same 9 she had seen again and again. But here, every set stopped at 8. The 9th had always been slashed out, erased, scorched black. Her lantern flickered as though it hated the room. On the far wall hung a mirror. Its glass was cracked into 9 shards, spiderwebbing from the center. Emily froze in the mirror's reflection. The cabin was not empty. Figures crowded the corners, thin, gray, faceless, their heads bowed, chains coiled around their arms. She spun around. Nothing. Only the mirror showed them. Emily inched closer. Her reflection looked pale, eyes wide, lips trembling. Behind her reflection, the shadows began to raise their heads. "Stop it," she whispered. "Stop." The shadows lifted their hands as one. Each held a mask, crude wood carved with numbers from 1 to 8. The missing mask, the nympho, was not there. Her reflection's eyes suddenly shifted, black as coal, her mouth tearing into a smile she didn't make. It whispered, "You are the 9th." The lantern in Emily's grip blazed blue, throwing shards of light across the cracked mirror. The shadows vanished. The reflection snapped back to her own pale face, but across the glass, carved as though by invisible hands, words scored deep. The 5th toll still rattled in Emily's chest as the shadow raised its faceless head. Chains slithered across the cobblestones, 9 lengths of iron dragging in unison. Emily's breath hitched. The figures were spreading out, blocking every street leading from the square. The only gap lay behind her toward the woods, exactly where the fountain's map had pointed. The lantern trembled in her hand, its flame flickering between white and blue. She ran. Her boots pounded across the stones, splashing through black puddles. The shadows moved after her without haste, but each step they took seemed to erase distance. The chains scraped faster, louder, rattling in her ears. The fog thickened, walls of gray parting only at the lantern's command. Houses leaned closer, their boarded windows gaping open, as though the town itself bent forward to watch her flee. She crossed the last row of crooked cottages. Ahead, the cobblestones ended at a line of trees. The forest loomed, skeletal and endless. The fog clung low, curling around roots and trunks like coiled serpents. Every tree leaned inward, their branches knotted together to form a canopy that let no moonlight through. She stumbled into the woods, breath ragged. Behind her, The chains stopped. The silence was worse. The lantern's glow strained here. Its light did not chase the fog, it only held it at bay, trembling in a small circle around her. Beyond that, the trees stretched for... Emily slowed, heart hammering. The sixth toll rang. The sound tore through the forest like thunder, shaking bark from the trunks. The trees groaned as if alive, branches twisting toward the sound. Emily dropped to her knees, covering her ears, but the bell wasn't just in the air, it was inside her, rattling her teeth, pressing behind her eyes. When it finally faded, she opened her eyes to find carvings gouged into the bark of the trees around her. 9 symbols. Again, the 9th was erased. Emily forced herself forward, clutching the lantern. Roots clawed at her boots, mud sucking her steps deeper. The fog curled tighter, whispering through the branches like voices carried on wind. Count with us. Count with us. She stumbled onto a narrow path lined with stones. At its end stood a cabin, leaning, its roof sunken, its door half open. A lantern hung on the porch, dark. The lantern in Emily's hand guttered once, then flared, pulling her toward it. The 7th toll struck. The sound rolled through the ground, splitting roots, shaking the cabin. The door banged open with the force of it, revealing only blackness inside. Emily hesitated, terror clawing at her throat, but the lantern's flame bent toward the cabin as though drawn by a tide. She stepped onto the porch. The boards sagged, but held. Her fingers brushed the lantern hook end. The cold wood of the doorframe trembled under her hand, warm like skin. A whisper drifted out of the cabin. Not the voices of the shadows. Not the child's giggle. Her mother's voice, Emily. Hurry. Before 9. The cabin exhaled a breath of cold air as Emily stepped inside. Her lantern's light crawled across warped floorboards and rotting walls, revealing a single room stripped of comfort. No furniture. No hearth, only emptiness, as though the house had been built for something other than living. And yet, the air was heavy with presence. The 7th toll still hummed in her bones when she noticed the markings. Every wall was carved with symbols, dozens of them etched deep into the wood. The same 9 she had seen again and again. But here, every set stopped at 8. The 9th had always been slashed out, erased, scorched black. Her lantern flickered as though it hated the room. On the far wall hung a mirror. Its glass was cracked into 9 shards, spiderwebbing from the center. Emily froze. In the mirror's reflection, the cabin was not empty. Figures crowded the corners, thin, gray, faceless, their heads bowed, chains coiled around their arms. She spun around. Nothing. Only the mirror showed them. Emily inched closer. Her reflection looked pale, eyes wide, lips trembling. Behind her reflection, the shadows began to raise their heads. Stop it, she whispered. Stop. The shadows lifted their hands as one. Each held a mask, crude wood carved with numbers from 1 to 8. The missing mask, the nympho, was not there. Her reflection's eyes suddenly shifted, black as coal, her mouth tearing into a smile she didn't make. It whispered, "You are." The 9th. The lantern in Emily's grip blazed blue, throwing shards of light across the cracked mirror. The shadows vanished. The reflection snapped back to her own pale face. But across the glass, carved as though by invisible hands, words scored deep. Destroy the ninth or become ice. The eighth toll rang, shaking the cabin. Dust rained from the rafters. The mirror trembled, cracks spreading wider, splitting her reflection into pieces. From the floorboards beneath her, a scratching sound began. Then knocking. 1, 2, 3. Emily staggered back, heart pounding. Not again. The knocking spread, dozens of fists beating from below, rattling the planks like drums. The boards swelled, threatening to split. Whispers rose with them, deafening. Count with UF. Count with UF. Count with UF. She dropped to her knees, gripping the lantern. Its flames sputtered, shrinking under the pressure of so many voices. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. She yanked it free, screen glowing though she had no signal. A new message blinked onto the screen. Before 9. Under the floor. Emily froze. Under the floor. She looked down. The boards beneath the mirror quivered. A gap had opened between them, faint light leaking through. The knocking grew frantic. The ninth toll was coming. She shoved her fingers into the crack, prying the boards apart. Splinters tore her skin, blood streaking across the wood. With a scream, she ripped a plank free. Beneath a stairwell yawned into blackness, and at the bottom, faintly glowing, was a mask. Carved smooth, hollow-eyed, its surface branded with the erased symbol the ninth. The ninth toll drew in breath, ready to strike. Emily clutched the lantern in one hand, staring down into the stairwell. She had found it. The ninth. Chapter 4. The door. The silence before the ninth toll was worse than the toll itself. It stretched, heavy and waiting, like the whole town was holding its breath for her next move. Emily's lantern guttered. The light bent toward the stairwell yawning beneath the broken floorboards, where the bone mask glowed faintly in the dark. Her throat clenched. Every instinct screamed not to go down there, not to touch it, but the phone's message still pulsed in her mind. Before 9, under the floor. The toll came. 9. It split the cabin like a crack of thunder, rattling every beam, shaking every nail loose. Ash poured from the rafters, the mirror shattered completely, shards raining down like knives. And the stairwell below breathed. A rush of warm air surged upward, smelling of rot, lilies, and smoke. The glow around the mask pulsed brighter, beating in rhythm with the tolling bell. Emily's hand clamped around the lantern, her knuckles white. "I won't be part of this," she whispered, but her feet moved anyway, carrying her down. The steps were slick, damp. The deeper she went, the less her lantern mattered. The glow of the mask lit the chamber at the bottom like pale fire. It rested on a stone pedestal carved with the 9 symbols. The missing one now, branded into the mask's forehead, gleamed like a wound that refused to close. Around the pedestal, chains lay coiled, unmoving, as though waiting to bind again. The whispers began the moment her foot touched the dirt floor. "Welcome, welcome. Complete us. Where it be the 9th. Her chest tightened. She shook her head violently. "No. I came to destroy you." The whispers laughed, low and endless. They all said that they all failed. Emily approached the pedestal. The mask was beautiful in its horror, its bone polished to an ivory sheen, its hollow eyes seeming to look through her. She reached into her pocket and pulled out one of the coins Agnes had given her at the inn. It felt useless now, a child's toy against something this vast. The lantern's flame burned blue-white, steady, waiting. Her Mother S words rang again in her head. "Find the 9th but Dante. Bring it back. Destroy it." Emily lifted the lantern higher. Its light washed over the mask, and for a heartbeat, the whispers fell silent. Then the mask's mouth carved as nothing more than a thin slit opened, and it spoke in her mother's voice. "Emily, put me on." Her blood ran to ice. "No, you're not her." The mask chuckled, a dry rattle like bones clicking together. "She wore me once. That's how she survived the fire. That's why she stayed. You'll understand when you join me." The chains on the floor shifted, one by one, rattling awake. The mask's glow grew brighter, its voice sweeter. "You've carried the circle this far. Without you, it won't open. Without you, I can't come back. Put me on, daughter." The first toll began again. Emily gasped, panic rising. The cycle hadn't stopped. The bell was counting again. 1. She lifted the lantern higher, heart pounding. She had to choose. Destroy it now, or listen to the voice that sounded too much like her mother. Her hand shook as she raised the lantern over the mask. The whisper surged, furious. Don't. The 9th cannot be destroyed. It is a door, not a thing. You'll tear yourself open. You'll let us through." The second toll struck, louder. Emily's tears blurred her vision. She screamed, raising the lantern high, ready to smash it down. The mask laughed, her mother's laugh, her own laugh, a dozen voices at once. "Break me, and the door opens anyway." Emily froze. The chains slithered closer. The bell was climbing. 2. The toll thundered through the cabin's foundations, shaking dust from the beams above. The bone mask pulsed on its pedestal, a heartbeat not its own. Emily's grip on the lantern slicked with sweat. Her arm trembled as she held it high, ready to strike. Her mother's voice hissed from the mask again, softer now, almost tender. "Emily, don't. You'll free them. If you destroy me, the circle unbinds." Emily's teeth clenched. "And if I wear you," the mask chuckled, hollow and deep, "then you become the lock. The door stays shut, but so do you." 3. The chains around the pedestal stirred, slithering like serpents. One coiled around her ankle, icy and alive. Emily kicked free, stumbling back. The whispers rose like a tide. Choose. Before 9. Her chest tightened. She thought of the photos in her pocket. Her mother hollow-eyed, standing with masked townsfolk. Had she worn this mask once to hold it all back? Had she become part of the circle? And if so, why was she still here at all? 4. The toll cracked the air. The stairwell behind Emily groaned, boards splintering, the way shut already crumbling. She was being sealed in. She turned back to the mask, fury burning through her fear. You tricked her. You tricked everyone before me. The mask's hollow eyes glowed brighter. No trick, Emily. A bargain. One stays behind. One wears the 9th. That's the only way the town survives another cycle. The chains lashed the floor, rattling in rhythm with the bell. 5. The lantern's flame roared suddenly, white-hot, nearly searing her hand. The whispers recoiled for a breath, screaming in rage. Emily seized the chance. She raised the lantern higher, slammed it toward the mask. A blast of force hurled her backward, crashing her against the wall. The lantern clattered but stayed lit. The mask's mouth twisted into a grin. You can't destroy a door. You can only decide who guards it. 6. Emily dragged herself up, gasping. The bell's toll shook her skull. Her vision blurred, her body weak. On the pedestal, the mask began to lift on its own, hovering in the air. The chains writhed upward, weaving together like skeletal hands, reaching to place it on her face. Her scream tore out of her throat. She grabbed the lantern and hurled it at the mask. It struck. The glass shattered, white fire erupted, searing the chamber in blinding light. 7. The toll drowned in the explosion. The chains shrieked as if alive, writhing and snapping apart. The pedestal cracked, stone splitting under the light. The mask fell, clattering against the floor. But it did not break. Instead, it turned on its own, its hollow eyes staring up at her. Its grin widened, splitting farther than bone should allow. Emily, it purred. You've already warned me once. Why do you think you survived the fire? Her blood ran to ice. That's a lie. The masked left a sound of children, mothers, men, all voices woven together. You left the house that night, but you didn't leave me. I've been waiting in your shadow ever since. Emily staggered back, clutching her head. Fragments of memory clawed up from the dark. Smoke, fire. Her mother screamed, then a cold weight on her face, pressed tight, a moment of breathless darkness. Before the window broke, her stomach lurched. It wasn't a dream. She had worn it. 8? The toll struck. Violent, furious. The mask rose again, hovering at eye level. The chains snapped toward her wrists and throat, ready to bind. The chamber roared with whispers, deafening now. Before 9. Decide. Door or door? 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 The mask drifted closer, its grin splitting bone, its hollow eyes swallowing her reflection. The 9th toll swelled in the air, seconds from striking. Emily's scream ripped through the chamber. She grabbed the mask in both hands cold, burning bone biting into her palms. And for a hot beat, she didn't know if she meant to destroy it or put it on. 9. The toll struck. It didn't just echo, it tore. The air ripped like fabric. The cabin ground as though its timbers were bones snapping, and the ground beneath Emily split open. The mask in her hands burned cold, searing into her skin, chains lashing toward her wrists, her throat, her chest. The lantern's shattered pieces still glowed faintly on the dirt floor, white fire spilling upward like breath, but it wasn't enough. The 9th had awakened. The wall behind the pedestal split wide, revealing not wood, not earth, but a void-black, infinite breathing. Stars that weren't stars glimmered in the abyss, arranged in spirals that made her eyes ache to look at, and beyond them, something vast pressed against the threshold. Its hands, dozens of them, groped through the crack. Its voice was the bell itself, rolling through the chamber, thunderous and endless. Open, 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 Emily screamed, gripping the mask tighter. Not from the mask this time. Not from memory. From behind her, raw and desperate. Emily Dunk? Wear it. Emily twisted. Her mother stood in the stairwell, her form flickering between flesh and ash, but her eyes blazing with ferocity. Her mother staggered forward, chains snapping at her ankles, trying to drag her back into the dark. She fought them, every step tearing her skin, every breath a battle. Destroy it. Even if it kills you, destroy it. Emily's heart convulsed. The mask writhed in her grip, trying to lift itself to her face. Its hollow eyes glowed like open mouths. Guard the door, it whispered. Be the 9th. Save them. Save your mother. Her mother's scream tore the air. That's what it told me. That's how it keeps us here. Don't believe it. The void roared wider. Shadows poured through, shrieking like 1,000 children giggling in reverse. Chains rattled up from the floor, lashing for Emily's wrists. Her vision blurred with tears and blood. Her lungs burned. The bell's toll still rang. Endless, the 9th stretched into eternity. She had seconds. With a cry that tore her throat raw, Emily raised the mask high and slammed it against the stone pedestal. Bone cracked. The whisper shrieked. She struck again. The pedestal split further, the chamber shaking, the void screaming. The mask writhed, biting into her palms, trying to crawl up her arms. Her mother lunged forward, wrapping her hands over Emily's, adding her strength. Together, the two of them hurled the mask down onto the pedestal one final time. It shattered. The glow bled out in an explosion of white and black light, the chamber collapsing inward, chains screaming as they snapped, the void recoiling like a wounded animal. For an instant, Emily saw its true shape beyond the door vast, faceless, made of 9 mouths screaming in silence. Then the fissure slammed shut, the toll cut off. Silence. Emily collapsed to the dirt floor, blood streaking her hands where the mask had torn them. The lantern's shards flickered once, then died. Her mother knelt beside her, fading, her form unraveling into smoke. She cupped Emily's face, her touch warm, real. You did what I couldn't. she whispered. But the town isn't done with you. It never is. Emily clutched her mother's wrist, desperate. Don't leave me again, please. Her mother smiled, sorrowful. You'll hear me when the bell calls. Don't answer, Emily. Don't ever answer. Her hand dissolved into ash in Emily's grasp. Then her face, then nothing. Emily was alone. The cabin had gone still. The pedestal lay broken. The mask was gone, shattered into dust. But etched into the dirt floor where it had fallen were fresh words, written in ash. The ninth always returns. Chapter 5. The Return. The cabin was silent. Too silent. Emily staggered to her feet, her palms bleeding where splinters of bone had bitten deep. The air was thick with ash, clinging to her skin, her hair, her lungs. She coughed, the sound swallowed instantly by the fog curling back into the broken stairwell above. The words on the floor burned in her mind. The ninth always returns. She stumbled up the steps. Each board groaned, warped, as though it remembered the centuries of footsteps that had gone down into that chamber before her. When she pushed the trapdoor open, the cabin above was not the same. The walls leaned closer. The wood bled tar from its cracks. The shattered mirror on the wall had somehow pieced itself back together, but the reflection staring at her was not her own. It was the mask. Hollow eyes, bone grin. Her breath caught. She turned away, forcing herself out the door. The forest pressed in on her immediately, alive with whispers. The fog had thickened into walls, closing off every path except one back toward the town. Emily gritted her teeth. Fine. I'll go back. She walked, each step heavy, her lantern now cold and lifeless in her hand. The fire inside had gone out, but still the glass was warm, as if something inside it only slept. Branches clawed at her arms as she stumbled forward. Somewhere in the trees, chains rattled, keeping pace with her. The first toll rang again. Emily froze, her blood turning to ice. No, it can't. The bell boomed through the forest, shaking leaves from branches, vibrating through her bones. The cycle had restarted. By the time she reached the town's edge, the fog had reshaped the streets. The crooked cottages leaned taller, their windows open like gaping mouths. The fountain in the square gushed black water, spraying into the air, staining the stones. And there at the far end of the square stood the 9 figures again. But this time, one of them was wearing the bone mask. Her legs nearly gave out. No, I destroyed it. The faceless figure tilted its head, the mask glowing faintly in the fog. The others dragged their chains in rhythm with the toll. 2. The sound shook the square. The fountain cracked down the middle. The masked figure raised a hand, pointing directly at her. Chains whipped across the stones, slamming into the ground inches from her boots. Emily staggered back, heart pounding. The whispers rose again, filling every shadow. The 9th returns. The 9th is you. 3. The toll nearly knocked her off her feet. The houses leaned closer, their doors swinging open one by one. From each, pale figures crawled out, men, women, children, their faces charred, their eyes pits of ash. They spilled into the streets, kneeling before the 9 with bowed heads. The town was alive, and it had chosen her. Emily clutched the dead lantern to her chest, whispering through her teeth, I won't I won't be your ninth. But the figures lifted their heads in unison, and every mouth burned, broken. Smiling moved as one. You already are. 4. The bell shook the square like an earthquake. The ground cracked, black water flooding from the broken fountain. The kneeling townsfolk lifted their heads, their hollow eyes fixed on Emily, their mouths stretching open in silent screams. The 9 figures advanced. The one wearing the mask pointed at her again, chains rattling like applause. Emily bolted. Her boots splashed through the filthy water as she fled down a narrow lane. The houses leaned so close above her that the sky vanished, their roofs meeting like jaws snapping shut. Doors banged open as she passed, hands clawing from the darkness, trying to drag her inside. She tore free. The skin of her arm scraped raw where a grip nearly held. She ran faster. The 5th toll came. The sound shattered windows, raining glass across the street. The shards cut her legs as she sprinted, but adrenaline shoved the pain aside. She turned a corner only to find herself in the square again. Her breath hitched. No, I left here. The town was folding in on itself, her path twisting back to its heart no matter which way she turned. The 9 figures were closer now, stepping through the water, chains dragging like anchors. The mask's grin glowed faintly in the fog. Emily clutched the dead lantern. Come on, light, please. Nothing. Only warmth, faint as a heartbeat. She screamed in frustration, hurling it against the ground. The lantern cracked but didn't break. Its glass pulsed once. A faint flicker, then went dark again. The 6th toll slammed through her body. Her knees buckled. Townsfolk surged forward from every alley, arms outstretched, chanting in broken voices. Ninth. She stumbled back toward the fountain. Its waters had risen, spilling black sludge across the square. Beneath the surface, pale faces pressed upward drowned, twisted, whispering for her to join them. Chains lashed out, wrapping around her wrist. She screamed, pulled to her knees as the masked figure drew closer. Its hollow eyes stared straight through her, the grin splitting wider, impossibly wide. Emily, it said in her mother's voice, soft and sweet. It's time. The 7th toll rang. The chains yanked hard, dragging her across the stones. Her palms tore open, blood mixing with the black water. She clawed at the ground, kicking, fighting. But the circle of figures loomed over her now. The mask hovered inches from her face, bone white and hungry. You survived once because you wore me, the voice whispered. You'll survive again. Just say yes. Emily's scream tore out of her throat, raw and furious. No. She snatched the cracked lantern, raised it high, and smashed it against the mask. Light exploded. Not white, not blue, red. The kind of light that burns behind closed eyes. The kind that sears truth into bone. The figure shrieked, staggering back. The townsfolk dissolved into ash, swept away on a sudden wind. The mask's grin twisted into a scream as cracks split across its bone surface. Emily staggered to her feet, holding the lantern that now blazed with red fire. Its glass had mended, its frame glowing hot in her grip. Red. She faced the masked figure, trembling but unbroken. I'm not your ninth, she spat. 8. The toll came. But this time, it was weaker, faltering. The masked figure reeled, chains snapping loose, its shadow unraveling in the fire's glow. But the voice hissed one last warning, crawling under her skin. Break me, and the door will open. Refuse me, and you are the door. Either way, the ninth returns. The ninth toll swelled in the air, heavy and inevitable. Emily braced, clutching the red lantern to her chest, her eyes burning with tears. Whatever happened next, she knew there was no running, only choosing. 9. The toll ripped through the town. The square split apart, stones heaving like teeth from a jaw. The fountain erupted, spewing black water that hissed into steam under the glow of Emily's red lantern. The 9 figures shrieked as one, their chains snapping into the air like vipers. The masked one staggered, cracks splitting across its bone face, light bleeding from the fractures. Emily stood in the center of it all, clutching the lantern tight to her chest. Her whole body shook, but the fire inside the glass only grew stronger, brighter, feeding on her fear and fury alike. The mask's hollow eyes locked onto her. Its grin tore wider, spilling ash. You think you've beaten me? You already are me. The fire chose you. The ninth is not given, Emily, it's born. Emily's tears cut clean tracks down her ash-streaked face. No, she said, voice cracking but unyielding. I'm not the door. I'm the one who closes it. She raised the lantern. The square howled. Windows shattered. Doors blew open. Townsfolk crawled into the streets again, their faces split, their mouths stretching wider than their skulls should allow. They writhed on their knees, arms raised, worshipping the mask. The masked figure stumbled closer, chains dragging behind it, every step shaking the square. Its voice grew louder, many voices woven into one. You can't destroy the ninth. If you refuse, the door will take you. If you accept, you are lost. Either way we win. Emily's chest heaved. The weight of the lantern burned into her bones, the red fire searing her skin. She thought of her mother, of the voice begging her not to put the mask on, not to finish what the town had started. Her hands shook. Her choice was agony. But she lifted the lantern higher and screamed, Then I'll burn the whole circle with me. The red fire erupted outward. It swept the square in a tidal wave of light, incinerating the townsfolk into ash that spiraled upward like smoke. It devoured the chains, snapping them like threads. It struck the 9 figures full force. They screamed, their shadows unraveling, their bodies burning into cinders. The masked figure staggered back, fractures splitting wide until the mask shattered completely, shards exploding into the air. From the ruins of its face, a roar of pure fury erupted, then was silenced as the fire swallowed it whole. Silence. The toll cut off. Silence. The square lay in ruins, black water gone, ash drifting like snow. The fountain was broken. The houses leaned but did not breathe. Emily collapsed to her knees, the lantern clutched in her lap, its red fire dimmed to a soft ember, humming faintly like a heart. She sobbed into her hands. Not victory, not relief, just exhaustion. And then a whisper brushed her ear, faint as breath. The 9th always returns. Her head snapped up. On the fountain's rim, etched fresh into the stone, were the same words she had seen in the cabin. And beneath them, newly carved, next hole, Dawn. Chapter 6. Dawn. The square was dead still. Emily knelt beside the broken fountain, the red ember in her lantern pulsing weakly in her lap. Her chest heaved with every ragged breath. Her palms still bled where the mask had bitten her, the wounds seared black like brands. Her eyes fixed on the words carved into the stone. Next hole. Dawn. She whispered the words aloud, her voice hollow. So it never ends. The fog shifted. It coiled tighter around the town, pressing against the crooked roofs, the boarded windows. The streets groaned, wood and stone bending, as though the town itself inhaled. Emily staggered to her feet. Every bone ached, every muscle screamed, but she forced herself forward. There has to be a way out. There has to be. She clutched the lantern and walked, limping, through the silent streets. The inn appeared again, the Resting Stag. Its crooked sign swayed in the still air, though no wind moved it. The door hung open, spilling faint light into the fog. Emily's chest tightened. She remembered Agnes's warning, her trembling hands as she'd given her the coins. Don't open your door unless the lantern burns blue. Emily stepped inside. The lobby was empty. The ledger still sat on the counter, its pages open. Her name, Emily, was still written at the end of the list. But this time, there was something else. Beneath her name, scrawled in frantic black ink, was a message. Run to the fields. Don't let the dawn find you here. Her stomach dropped. She spun, scanning the room. Agnes, she called. Silent. The first toll struck. Emily flinched, dropping to her knees. The sound was softer this time, muffled, but it came not from the church, not from the bell tower. It came from the sky. The horizon through the window glowed, faintly, not red, not gold, but sickly gray. Dawn was coming, and with it, the cycle would restart. Emily ran. She tore back into the streets, the lantern blazing red again, as if sensing her desperation. The houses leaned away, their doors slamming shut as she passed, as though the town itself were trying to hurt her somewhere. The cobblestones thinned, the fog parting just enough to reveal a road leading outward toward fields she hadn't seen before. Her lungs burned, her legs weak, but she didn't stop. The second toll followed, rolling over the rooftops. The fields stretched ahead, blackened grass, broken fences, scarecrows with hollow skulls for heads. They swayed though no wind touched them. Beyond the fields, the forest rose again, endless and dark. Emily stumbled into the grass, the blades slicing her legs like knives. The scarecrows turned their heads as she passed, their empty sockets glowing faintly with ash. She clutched the lantern tighter. Its ember pulsed faster, hotter. The third toll came, and with it, whispers rolled across the fields. Not from the scarecrows, not from the town, from the sky itself. Where will you run, Ninth? Dawn is the door. Emily staggered, sobbing, forcing her legs to keep moving. I'm not the Ninth. I'm not. But the words on the fountain echoed in her mind, carved deep as scars. The ninth always returns. Chapter 6. Done. Full. The toll rippled through the fields. The scarecrows bent with it, their wooden frames creaking, their hollow skulls swiveling to follow Emily as she ran. Chains jingled faintly from their straw-stuffed arms, swaying in rhythm with the bell. The lantern burned hotter in her grip. The ember inside was no longer read it, pulsed a dark gold, as if tasting the coming dawn. Emily's lungs tore with each breath, her boots shredded through the brittle grass. The horizon glowed faintly, but it wasn't sunlight. The sky was cracking, pale lines spreading across it like fractures in glass. 5. The toll shook the earth. Cracks split the soil, black smoke hissing upward. Fingers pale, skeletal scrabbled at the openings, pulling, clawing, trying to drag themselves into the world. Emily screamed and leaped over a fissure, nearly falling. The smoke coiled around her ankles, warm as breath, whispering, "Stop running. The ninth can't leave." She ripped free, staggering forward, tears blinding her. 6. The scarecrows stepped down from their posts, one after another. Their brittle limbs snapped, straws spilling from them as they began to move, their heads twisted completely backward, their mouths splitting open where none should be. They shuffled into the fields after her, their movements stiff but relentless. Each step rattled the ground like bones breaking. Emily's throat tore with a sob. "No, stay away." The lantern flared, hurling a wave of gold fire across the nearest scarecrow. It ignited instantly, collapsing into ash. The others only quickened their pace. 7. The toll cracked the horizon wider. Through the fracture in the sky, Emily glimpsed something vast beyond the dawn, a shape with 9 mouths and 9 arms, pressing against the broken world like a prisoner against glass. Her legs gave out for a moment, dropping her to her knees. The whispers rose again, louder than the toll. The ninth is not a number. It is a door. And the door is opening. She staggered back to her feet, clutching the lantern so tight her bones ached. "Then I'll burn with it before I let you through." 8. The scarecrows closed in, their chains lashed across the grass, snagging her arms, her waist. She fought, screaming, kicking, the lantern blazing brighter as if feeding on her fury. The horizon cracked fully, light-strong light, gray and endless spilled across the fields. The ninth toll was coming. Emily was dragged to the ground, the chains tightening, the scarecrows looming over her with their hollow skulls grinning wide. The lantern pulsed once, twice, hot enough to blister her palms. Her mother's voice came again, faint but fierce, in her ear. "Emily, don't let them count for you. Make your own 9. Emily's breath hitched. "My own." The chains squeezed tighter. The scarecrows leaned closer. The horizon bled open, and the ninth toll swelled in the sky, ready to strike. Chapter 6. Dawn. 9. The final toll crashed across the world like the breaking of a mountain. The sky shattered. The fields split. The scarecrows shrieked, their hollow mouths stretching wider than their heads as chains tightened around Emily, dragging her down into the black fissures opening beneath her. And through the cracked horizon, the thing pressed closer, 9 mouths yawning, 9 arms clawing, 9 eyes that were not eyes fixed directly on her. The 9th is a door, the whispers roared. And you are open, Emily screamed, thrashing against the chains. Her lantern flared red gold, its fire so bright it split the fog around her, searing the scarecrows into cinder. The chains writhed but would not release, her mother's voice desperate, echoing, yet clear-burned in her skull. Make your own, 9th. Don't let them take it. Make it yours. Emily's heart pounded, her body breaking, the fire in the lantern searing her bones. And in that instant, she understood. The 9th didn't have to be the door. It could be the lock. With one final scream, Emily raised the lantern high above her head. I choose. My 9th. She hurled it down into the fissures, shattering it against the earth. The explosion was blinding red, gold, white, all colors at once, fire flooding the fields like a tidal wave. The chains ignited, snapping apart. The scarecrows burned into ash, their shrieks dissolving into the roar of flame. The thing beyond the horizon recoiled, its 9 mouths screaming without sound as the cracks in the sky fused shut. The fissures in the ground sealed, smoke choking back into silence. Emily collapsed on the scorched grass, her body trembling, her lungs burning with every gasp. The lantern was gone, melted into dust. The words carved in ash, carved in stone, carved in memory. The 9th always returns, faded with the dawn, the real dawn, for the first time since she arrived. The sun broke over Hallow's edge. Gold light spilled across the ruined fields, the crooked roofs, the dead square. The fog recoiled, thinning into nothing. The town was silent, watching. But no bell tolled. Emily rose slowly, her body weak, her palms torn and blistered. She turned toward the town, the inn, the church. The burned house. They all stood, but hollow, lifeless, their windows blind. She whispered, voice hoarse, it's over. And yet, as the sun climbed higher, a single sound drifted on the morning air. Not a bell, a knock, 3 soft taps from behind her. Emily froze, her blood turning to ice. She turned, and in the sunlight, standing among the scorched scarecrows, was her mother, or what looked like her. She smiled gently, her face unburned, her eyes kind. Emily, she said, voice warm, it's time to come home. Emily's breath caught. The morning light felt suddenly cold, because in her mother's shadow, stretching long across the grass, there were 9 mouths, yawning open. Emily thought she had closed the door, but she never realized the door wasn't in the church, nor in the woods, nor in the mask. The door was inside her. And now the only question that remains is this: when the next toll comes, who will be the 9th? If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who dares to listen in the dark.